the Awaken Your Ego podcast with Joanne and Ariana. We are a health podcast that explores topics to do with biohacking and self-discovery.
We are also on the self-discovery journey, and we want to attract listeners that are doing the same in order to help them realize they're not alone.
Ego differs from conventional medical spas and wellness centers. We believe that the secret to maximizing one's sense of self is in addressing the entire person, inside and out. We provide state-of-the-art aesthetic treatments as well as lifestyle management and holistic health solutions. We aim to please with our efficient and friendly customer service and guarantee with our scientifically proven alternative therapies and lifestyle optimizations that every patient will leave our care with a boosted ego. Our goal is to help our patients realize the necessity of self-care and to encourage them to prioritize their health and wellness goals. When we make self-care and confidence a priority, then we're able to bring to light our potential for happiness and growth. This podcast is a way to expand our reach so that we are able to spread the word on the importance of self, the whole self, inside and out.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. Please reach out to your medical provider if you have questions about any of the treatments we discuss to see if it's a right fit for you. Now on to our show.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Awaken Your Ego podcast. We're really excited to have a special guest today, and her name is Sara.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Sara. So to give you a little bit of background on Sara, her name is Sara Jane Malough. She's a driven entrepreneur, single mother, and the owner of not one, but two successful businesses in Riverbank, California. With her entrepreneurial spirit and passion for creativity, she's built a thriving career that has earned her a reputation as a respected business leader in her community. In 2017, Sara Jane founded Jane Media Services, a full-service marketing and advertising agency that specializes in helping small businesses and startups to grow and succeed. Despite facing numerous challenges as a single mom, Sara Jane remained dedicated and focused, working tirelessly to build her business and make it a success. Her hard work and expertise have helped many businesses in this area to increase their online presence and attract more customers. In 2022, Sara Jane expanded her business by launching the Collective Space Studios, a co-working space that provides a collaborative and supportive environment for freelancers, entrepreneurs, and small business owners. The space offers shared workspace, private offices, meeting rooms, and event spaces, as well as networking and educational opportunities. The Collective Space Studios has quickly become a hub for creativity and innovation in the local community. In 2023, she opened the Collective Space Event Venue, a space that is specifically designed for events and celebrations. The venue offers a variety of amenities, including a full kitchen, audio and video equipment, and a variety of seating and table arrangements. Quite a success story. And for those who don't know, we use Collective Space Studios for our podcast recordings.
Super convenient, and we love it.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Sara. We are super excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. Weird to bring it back home.
And for those that don't know, we do record our podcast at Collective Space Studio. And so we've been developing a relationship with Sara, and we really love using her gorgeous space all the time.
Oh,
well, I love
having
you.
It's been a year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys popped up on my Instagram the other day. I was like, dang, it has been a year of recording stuff.
One of the OGs of the space.
Yes.
Okay, so to get started, we wanted to talk about comfort zone. You are the queen of stepping out,
Yes.
Stepping into the unknown.
I'm like, what's a comfort zone? Unfamiliar.
How would you describe your comfort zone?
Well, I would have to say that my comfort zone might be more of a trauma response than anything. I feel like I spend a lot of time in my day-to-day life kind of in a place of uncomfort. And whether that's positive or not, that's where I have, ended up spending a lot of my time. So I feel like because of, my time as a single mom and an entrepreneur for over a decade now, I spent a lot of time kind of in an uncomfortable space. And so taking risks or trying new things isn't really scary for me. I think, well, that's not true. It's very, very scary. but it almost is like if I'm not doing something, yes, it's more familiar. So like chaos, craziness, like I'm okay in that. That's not going to overwhelm me and really bring me down. It's almost kind of those times of like silence or calm or like, am I forgetting? Is something going wrong right now? Like, why isn't something going wrong? Which is casually toxic. But I think that's kind of where my comfort zone ends, is when things are smooth sailing. Yeah.
No, I love it that you bring that up, because I feel like a lot of people associate comfort zone with, oh, I'm zen, I'm chill. And it's like, no, like if you grew up with, say, like a verbally abusive father, that's comfortable for you.
Yeah.
So you're going to accept men that are in that same way, and that feels familiar.
You're going to see,
and it doesn't mean it's right or your ideal, but it's like, this is what I'm used to.
Correct.
So I think a lot of people misinterpret it, and I like that you're so like, that, hey, I'm familiar with chaos. Like that feels fine for me.
Yeah. Problematic, but growth.
We're learning, we're evolving.
Yeah.
So when it comes to stepping out of your comfort zone, what kind of steps do you find like most difficult? Like, what do you do when you're in that moment of like feeling that lull or things calming down? Like, what triggers in your mind?
So one of two things I found, about 6 months ago, like 4 or 5 months ago now, I had opened this business, earlier in the year. And by December, January, it was thriving. It was really self-sufficient, maintaining and growing. I was taking on new clients in Jane Media Services, and everything was kind of like good. But I was like, is it though? And it kind of gave me an itch of like, I want to do something more. I want to do something different. I want to be inspired again. I want to be in that growth mode. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of took some time in December and January and just kind of like felt my feelings, like tried to listen to my heart. I had a lot of amazing clients through the pandemic, but they weren't really like where my heart is. And my heart is like female entrepreneurship and, small businesses in our local community. And so I was like, while I loved my current clients, they weren't like feeding my soul and lighting that fire. It was very status quo. And so I wanted to take this next year of 2023 to restructure. And two of those things are expanding Collective Space Studios, obviously, to our new location. But then also getting uncomfortable with not just accepting whoever's going to have me be a service provider to them, but like getting really intentional with like who I want to be spending my time with and what kind of projects I want to be working on. And like, is this serving the community? Is this, helping a small business owner, a female small business owner find her voice? Like, I really wanted to get back to that. And so while it was uncomfortable to step away from some projects, I just I had to.
Well, you trusted your intuition, because you're great at networking. I feel like you're obviously like Collective Space Studios is a thing, and it's popular because you've been willing to do that outreach, and you're a good connector. And
I'm
I feel
never
like,
afraid to slide into a DM.
Yeah, right. And then I feel like even with your event center, it's like to that next level. It's like now we can do some more networking. Now like people can meet and get to know each other in a different light, and not just rent your space for one session or whatever. I think that's smart. That's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I think the Collective Space, you were already doing very well, so it was paying the bills, but you wanted more, and you wanted something that specifically fed your soul.
Correct.
And I think that is what makes it more of like a beautiful thing to follow that. Like, you know what, this feels really good for me. Like, this is safe.
Yeah.
But this feels really good, and I want to lean into that too.
Yeah.
And why not?
Well, because it's scary. But also I feel like it's important to kind of do a check-in with yourself every once in a while, and not necessarily like a get down on yourself check-in, but be like, hey, is this really what I want to be doing, spending my time on? Because I feel like sometimes people, especially entrepreneurs, small business owners, they're like, oh, hey, I have this business and like it's successful and everything's great and everything's fine. And then they just kind of like stop. But it's like, wait, is it still fueling your passion? Like, is it like making you want to wake up and like do something positive in the morning?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, you have to kind of like take a look at like, okay, how did I get here? Where do I go from here? But also I would have to say that while part of that was maybe me wanting to be in a growth mode or a fight or flight kind of a situation, taking on more than maybe I should have in that moment, I'm really trying to implement in the last, year and a half, balance, structure, because with Jane Media, I did so much like fight or flight growing. It was organic word of mouth stuff. But then with Collective Space, I've really tried to put systems into place. And while, growing pains, sometimes things happen. But generally speaking, I think that Collective Space was able to be so successful because I did take a step back and see what was and wasn't working with Jane Media, whether it be something as simple as like an intake form or a, booking online situation. And I was able to implement the mistakes I had made in the last 10 years in these new ventures. And so I think that the more that I find balance and, regularity, that's something I'm striving for. So while it's outside of my comfort zone, I'm trying to balance the growth of multiple businesses while at the same time finding the balance and structure of, processes and things like that.
I think that's smart.
Oh, if only I could do it.
You are doing it. I feel like
some
you're
days.
doing a great job. Like, I think you are a force to be reckoned with, and it's like you have a talent for creating something out of nothing. You rely on yourself and you go with that, and that's like fantastic.
I'm a big lipstick on a pig kind of gal.
I swear. What do you think are ways that you handle like fear and self-sabotage? Like what are your mechanisms that go through your mind, and how do you overcome that? So
I would say that self-sabotage and, negative self-talk is something that I have struggled with so much in my life, to the detriment of my business for years, comparing myself to other entrepreneurs, seeing what their level of success they were, allowing the circle of people that I was around to dictate what level of success I could have. Super problematic. And I got to a point where I was like, if this is not inspiring me, sparking joy. I like Marie Kondo'd my life. And I was like, if this is not something that's bringing me joy or making me feel like fuel to grow or be a better person in any direction in my life, then I got to cut it out. Like, the only loyalty is like to myself and my son, to be honest with you. Like, it is what it is, but that's like, those are my driving factors. And so whether it was silencing or muting an account on social media, knowing, like, even as a photographer, I for years looked at other people's accounts and would be like, oh my gosh, they're so much better, or they're so much more talented. I could not post a single photo that I had taken for a year because I would hate it for a whole year. And to market yourself and not want to post pictures is hard. Traumatic. And like, I was a social media manager that was not posting to my social media for 2.5 years. Yeah. And that, I mean, the place that I could have been if I had gotten out of my own head back in 2017, 2018 infuriates me. However, I take those lessons and like the negative self-talk that I like fueled for so many years, and I'm like, no one else's opinion matters than yours. If you're waking up every morning thinking that you are going to do good in the world and like grow something positive for other people, then nothing else matters. Post on social media, like show your face, put a filter on it if you need to, like show up authentically, be messy, try. Well,
yeah. And I love, it sounds like you went from needing this external validation. You're looking like, hey guys, am I okay? Like, what do you think? Is this a good idea? It's like you were seeking this external validation. And then finally you're like, I'm sick of answering to other people's opinions, and I'm going to go within and I'm going to do what I think is right. Yeah. And I think there's so much power in that, because then you don't need a check. It's like, what I'm doing is okay. And I'm going to attract people that are attracted to me and what I can do, and I can stand behind that.
Well, and I would also have to say that there's a lot of like team mentality in the world of like, oh, I need a partner to be able to do this with me, or I need, someone to come alongside me and like, let's do this together. And in all the different ways that can go wrong, I was like, I need to stop thinking that I have to have someone come along on this journey with me. I just have to see where this goes on my own. Yeah. And so I think that that's another thing, is like, if you're waiting for that perfect partner to come along, or a friend or a whatever to like do this with you, just stop. Like, you will find your tribe. When you start speaking truth into the things you want to create, the people that are meant to come alongside you will show up.
100%.
Very much like a, if you build it, they will come kind of vibe. Like,
no, I love that.
I like that because I feel like even my life too, I would notice that I would compare myself to other people, but it was always like, what am I missing?
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're successful because they're a happy couple and they have their family and they have all this.
Ugh.
And naturally I'd be like, oh, but I don't. And then
Yeah.
I try to, build up my own worth. Like, well, what do I have,
And then you're chasing things that are less than what you deserve to try and fit a status quo.
Yeah.
Well, and ultimately it's realizing like we only see this much, like such a small amount of what's actually going on behind the scenes. Like you have no idea.
Yeah.
So it's like if I'm comparing myself to someone's best day, it's like it's a losing battle. It's
Stop
like
watching the highlight reels.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I love that. That's funny.
Yeah. No, it's true.
No, it's true. I like that you're mindful of that and you had to make that mental transition and then the universe responded. Was there something that happened that made you make that shift?
Do you want me to name names? I would have to say that I spent a lot of time putting blood, sweat, tears, effort into building other people's brands and businesses. And I would come out the other side burnt out or undervalued or disrespected because they didn't know all the things that I was doing behind the scenes on my end to try and like educate myself on their industry or come up with new creative ideas for their branding. And so there was a lot that was going on behind the scenes with, clients and community members. And I was just like, why am I trying to convince these people that I'm great? Like, I know I am great. And I am building these businesses over and over and over again for these people. And then and this is not to like poop on anyone or shame anyone, but like not being compensated appropriately or outgrowing that relationship. And I was like, why am I going to keep trying to like build other people's brands when I already know how to do this and I should be doing it for myself?
And I think I like that you're mentioning that, but I think a lot of us, and I mean myself included, like we find our worth in different ways where it's like, I know I can implement things, I can make things hum. Like I'm really good at that. And it's easy for me to hyper focus and make someone else's business run awesome.
I'm so jealous
But
of
it
that.
took me a minute to get back to that place where I'm like, what am I investing in myself? What am I feeding myself? What am I doing that I like? And I can't stand behind just working for someone else and just promoting them. It's like, why am I not showing myself some love and figuring out what that looks like for me? And it's like, you shifted from just purely investing in others to like, hold on, what's going to happen if I invest in myself a little bit?
Yeah. Like how much more, you can't pour from an empty cup, you know what I mean? And so it's very much one of those conversations with yourself of like, hey, I can do this. I have done this. The only person standing in my way now is me.
Totally.
And having those tough conversations and understanding that like, it's going to feel uncomfortable because you're putting yourself out there. But at the end of the day, as I said, people will come alongside you and you will find that community that will show up and support you when you start celebrating yourself.
Well, and how icky does it feel when you feel like you're betraying yourself or allowing people like bad treatment or a lesser pay just because you don't have the boundaries established? And it's like, it still feels gross to yourself when you keep allowing behavior that doesn't feel right. And so it's like, it sounds like you're like, hey, I'm done with this. I'm setting up some boundaries. This is where I am. This is what I can accept. And this is what I can give. And I'm honest about it.
Well, and I will say that like, that is an ever-growing struggle, and finding that structure, finding that balance, finding that process with clients, even like rebooking the studio here. Like if someone's like DMing us to rebook and then I'm like, oh wait, they changed something 3 months ago for a booking and we didn't like implement something. So it's always evolving, but you're going to feel those icks whether you're staying status quo or you're taking the risk and saying, I'm going to do things differently. I'm in a place of growth. I'm in a place of change right now. And I am going to fight for myself and fight for my happiness and fight for my success. And I feel like people are really scared to say like, I'm going to fight for my own success. Like,
well, it's almost like society makes you feel weird about saying that. It's like it's almost like you're bragging or you're too inflated with your ego. And it's like, no, I believe this.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, that's not something you should be ashamed of. Right. But I feel like out there, it makes you feel like I can't want more. Like, especially as a woman, I feel like I'm just saying it's almost like you feel guilty for wanting more.
very much so. Yeah, no, and it's crazy because people don't understand how infrequently women specifically advocate for their own success. Not happy, like happiness is cool, that's great. Like I can meditate or something, but like I want to be like messed up, like crazy successful. And why are we always so scared to say that? Like, why is it taking me to my mid 30s to be like, wow, I want to be really successful. I will say, and this is something exciting that happens at Collective Space Studios every day, is I love seeing younger entrepreneurs taking advantage of digital marketing and all of those different avenues to celebrate themselves and celebrate their businesses and take themselves more seriously. Because I feel like for so many years, we were not allowed to say, I want to be successful. I want to be the best in this. I want to be the authority on this topic. And there's even photographers that have been shooting full time for less than a year that are now taking that leap and creating courses and training other new beginner photographers. And there is just like no fear. And I'm like, yes, I wish that was me 10 years ago, because the places I could have gone, the things I could have done. Yeah. But I can't think like that. I have to think like,
when I love to think about how we're all on our own path, right? And we're all kind of growing in different ways at different speeds. And it's like, there's no right time, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, we're on our right time. Yeah. It's like, it's going to happen when you can handle it and when you can elevate to that next level. And it just there was a learning curve, and then you found it. Like, that's sweet.
Well, and that's one of the things too, is I remember in December of 21 putting onto like a 5-year plan. Don't ever write anything down because it's very scary. I was like, in 5 years, I'd love to open a photography studio, because that's when I thought in my head that I would be adult enough to do that. Mm-hmm. However, I accidentally spoke it into existence and put it out in the universe. And by February 1st, I was signing a lease.
Amazing.
And then everything else has snowballed since then. And so I feel like that was kind of the first time of like, you are powerful, Sara, and don't let anybody ever tell you that you're not. And don't let the fear of failure or losing connections or like other people's opinions of you stop you from speaking your truth into existence and manifesting like the life you want to live.
When I love how you said like I was the only one in my way. And it's like
100%.
It makes you think like, what are other ways that we limit ourselves, whether it's in our relationships or how we are as a mom or how you are in your career. I feel like we put little limitations on ourselves, like, no, I couldn't possibly do that. Yeah. And I feel like I vibe with you in that way, where I'm like, I'm a yes girl. Joanne's the same freaking way of like, we say yes and we figure it out. And it's like, I love believing in myself and trusting myself that much that I know we're intelligent enough to figure out how to do what we want. Mm-hmm. And I can't work with people that constantly just nag of like, no. And I'm like,
this won't work.
Consider that we can mitigate all those problems. Then would you be down? You know, it's like, that's what I need in my life, is more of like the yes. Yeah. And that trust.
Because it's like what they say, well, there's a will, there's a way. You know, you can make it happen. You can figure it out. There's no failure. There's redirection. It's just your will to keep trying.
People that tell me that a week out is too short of notice confuse me. So, like, not that that's like always positive, because like, again, there's coming from that place of yes. But I feel like there are people in the world who like really enjoy structure, and that is their comfort zone. And sometimes you end up, and that's positive. They probably sleep better, or at least more. But I feel like sometimes like being so structured, you lose out on some opportunities for that scary kind of growth.
Well, and it's almost like that timeline it takes for them to get outside of the comfort zone and to get into the growth zone. It's like overcoming that fear. You know, it's like, I think a lot of times like people put that, like, I need a month notice, you know, kind of thing. Like, I need to get it right in my head before I can commit. And it's, you don't operate in that way. Yeah. But it's realizing your triggers and like what that transition from fear to yes looks like. Mm-hmm. Like,
I'm casually trying to find someone that does need notice so that they can help balance.
I feel like you guys were talking about me. I was like, oh, that's me. I'm very structured and organized. No, I've learned to embrace the chaos. Like, that was my uncomfort. Like, I'm very organized. I have OCD, color coordinated, like,
I love that. I am so jealous.
So anything that was like off routine was like very, very hard for me. So me hearing that you thrive in that, I'm like, I wish I could. I'm learning tiptoeing my way in, but
the most important thing is just learning how you operate.
Yes. The more that you can understand your own operating system, the faster you can bring on people, but also be clear. Like, hey, I have to be really honest with myself. Like, I am chaotic. I am not always the best communicator. My office hours are sometimes 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Like, I have really great ideas and I am terrible at implementation at times. And then sometimes I'm under the gun and I can do some things. But with that being said, I am now in a period of growth for advocating for someone like you who has the structure, can put in a process, can implement systems to help my growth focused mind not have burnout in 6 to 8 months.
Well, I think there's so much power in like knowing what you know and being confident in it, and also knowing what you don't know or what you're bad at.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of times I interact with people and I'm like, wow, you're scared to even know your weaknesses. You just ignore them. I'm like, I want to know everything as it is. I don't want to live in this imagination like realm. It's like, I want to be in reality and see things exactly how they are and know my own lacks so that I can work on them and create strengths, you know. But if you don't even know what you don't know, you can't even start that process.
But I also feel like that's why we talk frequently and in depth, sometimes to the point of tears, because it's like, you find someone who's really down to do that deep dive and like, hey, let's really like, hey, you are not great at this, and like tell you in a way that is loving and constructive and growth minded. Like, hey, I'm not saying this or trying to dive into like, oh, these are the flawed things about you, but it's like, hey, these are things that we could work on. And also talking about maybe how you got there too, like understanding
like where it comes from,
how your history affects your future. And that's something that we've spent a lot of time on too, is you really have to understand where you've come from, what you've overcome or lived through or triumphed against, to understand the real power that you possess. Because when you start focusing on, wow, that was crazy that I went through that and like figured it out and like moved on from it, then you're like, well, what else can I tackle today? Like,
one, it's huge. I think a big growth point too is also like realizing we've all been programmed in some resemblance, whether, through childhood, through experiences, through traumas. It's like, that's all part of our programming. And so I love figuring out my programming so that I can rewire and create a new cycle of thinking and discard those belief systems that no longer serve me. And it's like, I love that awareness that comes when you're like, wow, this, like, maybe, this chaos, it stems from childhood or whatever, living in a chaotic environment. Now it's comfortable for me, but it's knowing that there's power, because then you can harness those areas that aren't comfortable for you.
And change the narrative. You can always write that new chapter. Not to be cliche.
Can you give us an example of a specific time that you had to step out of your comfort zone, and maybe it was a drastic change?
Well, I would have to say, do we want to do it professional or personal? Because
either one.
I mean, I feel like for the personal side of things, it was obviously leaving my marriage and changing the course of mine and my son's life, and understanding that like whatever unknown was ahead was better than the devil in the house kind of a vibe. And then spending a long time kind of coming to terms with that and the effects that it had on me and my son.
That's huge.
Yeah. But then professionally, I would very much have to say it was opening up Collective Space Studios. At the end of the day, this space is my answer to everything that I've wanted for the last decade as a professional, as a community member, as a woman. I wanted a space for people to be able to collaborate and come together and grow ideas. And I wanted to have something that my son could be proud of, and something real and tangible. So I would say that signing the lease on Collective Space Studios, well, it's weird, it's just a commercial lease, but like it was really like
a big moment.
Yeah, it was changing the lock on the doors was intense, and the amount of opportunity and support that has come from that, like, it's been amazing, and it's really exciting. So I would have to say, like, that's why now I'm like, screw the comfort zone. Let's like full send on growth and opportunity, because I feel like as long as you're coming from a place of like wanting to serve and wanting to share, I mean, and I don't always serve, and I'm not always positive, and I'm not always like all the things that I should be, but like at the end of the day, that's what like that's where my heart is. Yeah. And so understanding that, and that I'm not going to be perfect in every step of the process, but like showing up and recommitting to that every day, to create community, to create growth, to support small businesses, that's where my heart is. And so like I feel like that is stepping out of my comfort zone to advocate for that has been the biggest, most positive change.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Made me tear up.
Oh my God. I'm like all emotional.
No, but I mean, speaking from experience, stepping out of a marriage is hard, especially when you feel it, it's not right.
Yeah.
And that's probably the most fearful thing that any female can do, especially when there's a child involved. But I feel like having made that decision in my life, it created more courage for me to fight for myself. Yeah. Because it's like, you know what, I did this. This was the hardest thing. I could do something else too. Yeah. And especially when it's like you have a child involved, it's like, no, this is more important than what you realize. Like, I'm setting an example. Yeah. And sometimes that might be hard for people to understand, but it's like, no, the overall message is to fight for me, fight for him. Yeah.
And it's odd too, because I feel like, especially when you are self-deprecating, or you've been in a relationship of like not being empowered, or having life breathed into you, it can be hard to see that value and take that leap of faith and get out of your comfort zone and know in your gut, wherever your gut is, it's everywhere right now, wherever it is, that like there is value, there is worth, and you can fight for yourself. And it's taken me almost a decade to like really talk about it and like have those conversations, and I still don't think I really do, but I have to, because it's such a part of like what molded me in my story. It's part of why I wanted to become a full-time photographer in the beginning, because I wanted to be as much a stay-at-home mom as possible, but also like grow something that I could support my son with, and finding what that path was for me. And that was because I was leaving a marriage, and so understanding how all of that stuff, all of that history plays into where you are at today and where you can go from here once you start to reconcile your past, I think it's like really empowering.
Well, and I've been talking a lot to my husband even about that process of like, when you have leaving with your spouse, like a disagreement, right? Yeah. It feels uncomfortable. It's frustrating. It's like, oh, I'm already so stressed with everything else. Now I need to be stressed at home and figure this out. Yeah. And I feel like I've really tried to mentally change that like mindset of like, ugh, to like, wow, cool, I get to figure out something else about myself. I get to learn about you more. Like it feels heated because we're both passionate about this and this is important. It's like changing what certain cues mean to you. And it's like welcoming the growth and the awareness instead of fighting it and resisting it and being like, this sucks, it's hard. It's like, you're gonna have to get through it regardless.
Like you're gonna be uncomfortable one way or the other. Yeah. It's making the choice of like, do you want to be uncomfortable in silence, or do you want to be uncomfortable in a place of love and growth?
Yes. And so I feel like that mindset is huge, whether it's business or personal, of like, okay, I'm acknowledging this fear and this anxiety, but I'm welcoming it because I know what comes after this. It's that huge moment, that growth moment, that evolution. It's like that always comes after. And so it's like, get excited about that time instead of dreading it, and do whatever it takes for you to like get to that mental space of positivity and like, we're going to get through this. It's not an end all, like whatever happens is what's meant to be kind of thing. Yeah. And I know that's like a random point, but what you were saying kind of made me, that switch flipped for you, and your mindset is like, no, I can handle whatever.
Yeah. And that is one of the things, is I think that once you start understanding that you don't always have, like for me, my comfort zone being something of chaos, you don't always have to accept chaos. And so stepping into a new relationship that like was very calm to me and very supportive and very like,
shout out to Tim.
And not always like that, but especially in the trust building phase, it was like very much a space of security and comfort and support and love and 100% acceptance. And it's like,
but I'm sure you had to check yourself because you're like, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yes.
Like, I'm waiting for him to fight with me. I'm waiting for the drama. And it's like,
when are we going to like throw hand? Like, what's happening here? Like, really terrible to say, but like, like what's going to happen? What's going to be that one thing that like implodes? And not like there can be stuff, but like understanding that the baseline was love and mutual respect and support. Like, I feel like, oh, this is what normal thing is. Like, that's weird.
When I love those moments of pause, it's like where you're like, hold on, is this me and my old programming and what I'm used to? Or is this truly what I should be expecting? Let me look at the facts, whether it's like of a relationship or the business. It's like, hold on, he's always been nice. He's always been trustworthy. Why am I waiting for a fight? It's like you can check yourself by like pausing and assessing like what's going on in here and why am I craving something different?
Yes. That was my December and January professionally, but also in my current relationship. Like, I am used to very much like a fighting, like smothering kind of toxic communication. And coming into this new relationship, it was, hey, no, we're not going to say anything positive right now. We'll talk about this later. And I was like, you're not going to yell at me and I'm not going to like, you know, cry. We're not going to do this whole thing. No, we're just going to take a beat and we're going to.
You're like, this is possible? Yeah. We can take a beat? Like,
correct. Yeah. And so it's not always like portrayed the like nicest way and you're, you know, but like it's important to talk about like healthy fighting and healthy disagreements. And like, I know this is a very different topic, but
I think that's a good like test of a relationship. Like how do you guys fight?
Yeah. And understanding like, hey, these are our non-negotiables. Like at the end of the day, like no one's sleeping on a couch. No one's doing these things. Like, we don't have to talk about it. We don't have to solve anything. Mm-hmm. But like, again, it's the mutual respect and very much for me specifically understanding like how much of this is something that I'm carrying over from previous experience versus what's really happening today. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's like very much a thing of understanding and growth that people should work on.
No, definitely. I love that you've even seen that within your own relationship. Like, that's fantastic. Yeah.
What are some tips or recommendations that have helped you expand when you're going through your comfort zone? Anything you recommend this is a must, or even things that you recommend not to do?
Oh my gosh. Can you give me an example of like what sorry.
No, like what would you tell a client, right? Say that they're going to start posting on social media. They feel so awkward about it. They're like, this isn't me though. I don't put myself out there. And what would you kind of tell them to like bridge that gap?
I would very much say start practicing self-talk. Not just self-talk, positive self-talk. And I would say do it on camera. For me, I was not posting on social media for 2.5 years. I didn't like, to be honest, like I didn't like how I looked. I was overweight. I was not taking care of self-care. I was not investing into myself. I was not giving my space to feel good and confident in my own skin. So it's like, how am I going to show up on social media? And then on top of that, cool, videos are a thing now. Shoot me. I'd rather not. And so I got to a point where I was like, I have to start doing this. I have to start showing up in this way. My business will be hindered. My bank account will be hindered if I do not take these steps. And when you put it into that perspective, I'm like, don't mess with my money. So I was like, cool, we're going to do this now. I practiced a ton. I had a ton of video content that I had created that will never see the light of day. I would heavily filter to this day, filter my face. But then it got to a point where I stopped caring about if I had makeup on, if my teeth are crooked. Like there's things that like I stopped caring about because I understood that like the place that I was coming from was going to be a place of positivity and growth and sharing information. And so I would say for people that are looking for a tip or a trick is very much start just start sharing your story, even if it's just recording yourself. Start documenting your process, especially if you're a business owner. The things that you do every day are the things that people are going to find so interesting. And this is something that I tell people a lot, and I don't know how many people understand what I'm trying to say, but you're not watching an HGTV home renovation show a whole hour of the final reveal. You're watching part of they're ripping up the tile floors and there's asbestos or something. You're watching the things go wrong and then how they recover from that. So if you approach your business or your personal brand with that kind of a mindset of like, yeah, I'm going to show them the good, the bad, the ugly. Yeah. And exactly. And then showing them, hey, this is what it culminated in. That's where I feel like you're going to end up having the most success. So for anybody that's like looking for those tips, I would say start showing up, start practicing for yourself. And then when you're ready, when you've completed like positive self-talk and understanding that like, as long as you're okay with yourself, no one else's opinion matters. And the only thing that's going to happen for you from here is positive growth, because you're going to learn a lesson in this process no matter what. You're going to learn a lot less by not taking that risk. So when you put all of those things into play, I think that that's where you should, you know.
The mindset is so huge, dude. It's like having a positive mindset changes everything. And I like that you mentioned that, but I think sometimes we are very self-limiting and like, oh, I couldn't possibly. And it's like, well, what if you could? Like, what would it take for you to say, I can? And it's like, let's do those steps and get you to that point.
I mean, we were literally sitting here and I was like, I'm a very lucky girl and everything just works out for me. I'm like, give me that lucky girl syndrome. I say it to myself in the mirror, even in the car mirror, as frequently as I can, because if I'm not going to tell myself that I'm good and things are going to be okay, who will?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, come on.
And you can only accept in others what you accept in yourself.
Correct.
And I think that's something that goes to all realms, like personal relationships, business, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's realizing like if I'm trying to hide certain aspects of me or not accept certain aspects of me, it's directly going to be correlated with how I view others and what I accept in them.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like I never want to limit myself. Yeah. And so it's like I need to figure this out and dial in and see where I'm lacking so I can be as successful as possible and be as real as possible and see things as they are.
Yeah. And I like how you talked about just doing it, recording yourself, doing it, like exposing yourself. Yeah. Because for me, I felt like what would limit me is I'm a perfectionist. Everything has to be perfect, or I'm so picky and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But I think just switching and aiming more to be deliberate and intentional versus perfect.
Well, and it's looking at yourself the way you look at strangers, the way you look at other people. It's like we're so self-critical, and it's like, hold on. When I look at a woman, I'm not looking at every little cellulite or little fat or weirdness going on her face. It's like I see them as a whole. Yeah. Why am I assuming that people are only seeing the things I hate about myself instead of viewing me as a whole?
Correct.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the times we believe that lie of like, no, my opinion is what other people see. And I was just talking to Joanne the other day, and I think a lot of women have this issue, like asking for help, reaching out. That's like almost a hard thing for me specifically. Yeah. But I realize I'm the first one to be down to help anyone. Yes. It's easy for me to say yes. And if I have to say no, I can do that too.
Yeah.
So why am I assuming it's such a burden and putting everyone out when I ask for help
every day?
I'm like, this is stupid, Ariana. I've had to mentally tell myself, like, you're overthinking it.
Yeah.
Assume people are viewing you the way you view them, and there's a lot of power in that.
Very much so. Circling back real quick to you, I've noticed that you've been posting more gym selfies and progress pics, and I just want to speak positivity into that because
thank you.
I'm curious, how long before you started posting them were you taking them and not celebrating your growth and your change, but also understanding that like we don't speak on a regular basis, but like I see you and like your transformation and your investment in yourself is inspiring to me.
Oh, thank you.
And so awesome. I feel like that's something that like we don't understand, that like sometimes it's the littlest things that we do, almost kind of feeling like, oh wait, am I leaning into my ego too much? No, you are celebrating and inspiring other women every day through those little steps that you take for yourself. So like that's like not a business related, but like a personal related like representation of, I think, everything we're talking about.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate that because most people wouldn't know that I actually suffer from body dysmorphia.
Oh.
So you could tell me all the things, but I couldn't see it that way.
Yeah.
But in a sense, it's like, you know what? I do work out. I love what I do, and I want to put it out there to motivate.
Yeah.
Well, and you've had people, and I'm just saying out of honesty, because I feel like we've talked about this, it's like you've had people try to tell you, oh, you're full of yourself, you're braggadocious, you're this and that. And it's like, and in reality, it's like at the end of the day, your intent isn't to make other people feel bad.
Exactly.
And so it's like what their comments are coming from a place of insecurity. Like, why can she do this and feel confident in it and be comfortable, and I don't? So like, I'm just going to hate on it.
That's awful. That is them.
Yes.
And their opinion is none of your business.
It's their baggage. It's their trauma.
Yeah.
There we go.
But I agree. It's just my intent. Like, I am doing this to help. That's
to help serve, to inspire, to motivate.
That's my
And
goal.
educate. Like, you totally do all of those things.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
Well, and I feel like that's a good tool also if it's like when someone is kind of seeing you in a negative light or makes a comment that you're like, whoa, you don't even understand me. You don't even know my intent. It's like, it's like checking in with yourself and pausing, like, is my intent good? Do I have some subconscious inkling that's trying to like make someone feel less than? And if the answer is no, then it's like, okay, it's their stuff. It's not mine.
And I would also have to say that because you're like, oh, they don't know my heart or there can be the people that are closest to you in your life. And, let's not speak to it too much because that's a different rabbit hole for a different episode. But understanding that it can be people that you have outgrown. These can be people that you used to hold their opinions very highly in your mind. And unfortunately, you might have given them too much sound for too long.
Or you're putting them outside of their comfort zone.
And and I can admit that has been a huge stepping out of my comfort zone is to have a voice against the closest people to me.
Yes.
Who I allowed to dim my light. But like you said, my vibe, my tribe will come, so I'm putting it out there, and those that vibe with me, it's like that's enough for me.
Yes.
I'm not for everyone, but whoever's on the same vibe, we're cool.
And that's an ebb and flow, and we're allowed to change, and we're allowed to grow. We're allowed to outgrow each other. Our people, ourselves. I hope that I am in 5 years not the same person that I am today.
Yeah.
And people that are like, you've changed. I was like, well, good Lord, I would hope so. Because I was an extremely drunk person. Like, at least 4 days of the month. Anyways.
All right. Sarah, what is advice or encouragement that you would give to your younger self?
Do it scared. Don't get so hung up on other people's opinions of you that you get so in your head and don't take the risks to move forward. I feel like it's almost scary to want to talk to my younger self because like she's a writer, she's a survivor, she's done some things. But give yourself the grace to show up authentically and celebrate every moment of progress, and don't get down on yourself because you're not where you thought you would have been, or you didn't check a box that you thought you should have checked. Like, just do it anyways. Do it messy. Show up authentically. Trust in yourself because you've gotten yourself this far.
Yeah, I love that.
Cool. Now I'm gonna cry.
No, I love that question because it's like it makes me be introspective and think also like, hey, what would I tell myself? And it's like if I had one sentence, it'd be like, you're worth it.
Yes.
You're worth all of it.
Yeah.
None of your desires are too much. It's like don't let anyone make you feel like you can't do something. Like 100%. Like so, I think I loved all of your advice, but it made me teary even thinking about little Ariana. Like what would I want her to know, kind of thing. But
you're worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. You're worth fighting for.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Sarah. This has been so awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in my studio. I love it.
And then I know you have an event coming up. So do we want to do a little shout out? Like let everyone know?
Is it going to be...
Shout it out, girl.
Okay. April 16th, we have our grand opening of Collective Space Events right here in downtown Riverbank at 3342 Santa Fe Street. It is from 1 to 5 p.m. This is where I'm collaborating with some amazing local event vendors to basically bring people's Pinterest boards to life. So if you've been perusing Pinterest boards and you've seen all these styled shoots and, oh, I love this for a birthday or an engagement or a celebration kitchen or whatever, we're bringing all those different kinds of setups into this space so you can see the endless possibilities of this blank canvas. So
That's really cool.
Yeah, I would love for you guys all to be there. We'll have some amazing local entrepreneurs and some really pretty things. So come camera ready. So
Yes, love it.
So if someone wanted to book with you, how would they find you?
yeah, so there's a couple different ways. I think I love a good DM, so I would have to say the easiest would probably be Instagram. You can find us, I'm sorry. Said 18 times. You can find us at Jane Media Services for all of your photography, website, social media management needs. And then you can find us at Collective Space Studios for all of your space rental, podcast hosting, community-driven events, things like that. So definitely follow us on Instagram. Reach out. We love connecting with new people, collaborating on exciting ideas. So yeah, that's how I would recommend. Contact us at Jane Media Services or at Collective Space Studios, and follow our new one, because what's one more Instagram? At Collective Space Events.
Awesome.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much for making me cry on a Tuesday.
Thank you for listening to Awaken Your Ego, a podcast that explores biohacking and self-discovery. We hope you follow us on Instagram and Facebook to stay up to date on what we're working on in your area.